Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is our last LPS monthly meetup of the fall semester. We have Dr. Laura Leatherwood from Blue Ridge Community College joining us this evening. She's actually one of our guest speakers from our alum, Melanie Lewis, who graduated in 20, I'm going to get that correct. Was it 21? Correct. Okay. So this was her idea to have Dr. Leatherwood join us this evening for this particular workshop. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Melanie for her to introduce our special guest, and we'll just go from there. And if anyone needs to share your screen, you do have the capability of doing so. You have a presentation. Right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Waters. So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Laura Leatherwood, president of the Blue Ridge Community College in Flat Rock, North Carolina, located in Western North Carolina. Dr. Leatherwood was named the 2022 North Carolina Community College President of the Year. Her educational endeavors include a BSBA in business law and Masters of Science in Human Resource Development, Training Development, and a doctorate in community college and university leadership from Western Carolina University. Dr. Leatherwood has blended her business mindset into helping and leading her community to successful outcomes. She consistently leads by building relationships with her community and listening and understanding the importance of their needs. She takes this vital information back to her college, working directly with her team, and molds resources to strengthen the community that she serves. Please welcome Dr. Laura Leatherwood.
Thank you, Melanie. What I'm going to really do, I just want to say thank you all for allowing me to be with you this evening. It's really great. And it's been a while since I have been in your seat, but I have been in your seat before. So I'm working with employees and students that are either going through a doctoral program, a graduate program, or even undergraduate program. So I serve as a mentor also to several people. I want to give you a little bit of context before I talk about leadership, my background, because that's going to give you a sense of what kind of drives how I lead the college. I grew up in rural Western North Carolina, right, in Swain County, one of the poorest counties in the state. I was an adult student. So when I decided to go to college after high school, I went to Western Carolina. I was one of those students that worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. I actually stopped out to earn enough money and went back again. So I think that when I'm serving community college students, I really kind of, my experience really gives me a lens and a vision for what their challenges that you all go through and that other adult students go through. So I went to Western Carolina, finished my undergraduate degree, and initially I thought I wanted to go to law school, and I did an internship. This is why internships are so important. I did an internship in a law firm, and I thought, good Lord, I'm not doing that the rest of my life. So I did get a business law degree. And I look back and reflecting back, oh my gosh, that has served me so well. So I never, majored in education. And then at that point, when I finished my undergraduate, which it took me a little bit longer because I was working my way through, I then went into human resource development. I loved organizational behavior. I loved training and development, never knowing at the time that I'd be in a community college. It just didn't occur to me. I never started out saying I wanted to be a college president. Well, I finally finished my master's degree, and I ended up working at Haywood Community College. I started my community college career there, and I really kind of just loved the work. I loved what we stood for. I loved the students, and I loved the fact that we were serving rural, urban, and metropolitan communities across the state. And once I got into that, I thought, I think that I could do this for the rest of my career. And I just really was sold, and it felt good what we were doing. That was all. I worked at Haywood Community College for 18 years, and I served 5 presidents. And all 5 of those presidents had some great characteristics, some great leadership things that I loved. They also had some things I didn't like. And that helped me create what kind of leader, or think about what kind of leader I wanted to be. So I stole this from this person, this from this person, this from this person. I said, never do that, right? And it helped to form my style. And so 18 years at Haywood, and at that point I'd served five presidents, and we were getting ready to get another president. I said, you know what? I can't train another president. I'm just going to be one. And so and so I waited until the right opportunity, and then Blue Ridge, and then now I've been at Blue Ridge. Now I've been there almost 6 years, working on my 6th year. So again, 24 years in the community college system, and I love it, and I would never change a thing about it. That was my career path, but how I approach, it's always an interesting question when someone says, what's your leadership style, right? Well, there's not one word that defines my style, or really should define your style. And a lot of times you're going to use a different strategy depending upon the situation. So your style needs to change. Just like being flexible and nimble, you need to change your style to fit the certain situation. Now, one of the things that Melanie really wanted me to talk about was how I kind of approach Blue Ridge. When I first came to Blue Ridge, interestingly enough, there was a president before me, Molly Parkhill. She was great, and she was great in her time. But when I inherited the institution after her 10 years, it was an interesting dynamic. And I think you see this at NC State. You probably, Melanie, see this at Western Carolina, but it's faculty against staff. It's continuing ed against curriculum. It has been very siloed. And then faculty, interestingly enough, the faculty would say, well, I don't have any students in my program. I've got low enrollment. It's because you're not marketing for me. And it's because the student services is not recruiting for me. And I listened to that my first 9 months. Anytime you take a new role like that, a leadership role, you want to spend a lot of time getting a clear picture of what's going on at the organization, institution, whatever it is. So I spent the first 9 months kind of assessing the organization, which is when I kind of figured out, interesting. We've got a lot of this. It's somebody else's fault because I have low enrollment, or it's somebody else's fault because of this. And I thought I've got to change the culture here. This is not going to work. And the first thing I did was I rolled out a list of what I would call global expectations for every employee. And believe it or not, it was some simple things like, we're going to treat each other with respect, and we're going to help grow and develop each other. We're not going, if you don't have something nice to say about somebody, don't say it at all. And it's just basic good communication and trying to change the culture. And one of the things that I said, we had faculty members that felt like that their job was more important than grounds and maintenance and student services and whatever that job was. And I said, hold on just a second. That every single job, every single position, every single role at this college is equally important. No job is more important than the other. And it's a big puzzle. And when every piece of the puzzle is working as it should, and every person is really doing a great job, then you've got a complete picture. And that's what helps the institution run and thrive. So changing that over a period of time, it's taken a while. So March 2020 hits, and what happens? Pandemic, right? We were getting our stride, we'd rebranded, and then we had to shift everything online. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening here? And it was an interesting dynamic. And here we are now. But during the pandemic, just as you all were doing what you do and teaching and whatever you were doing, whatever organization you're working in, it was day to day trying to figure out. But I think from a leader, as the leader of the institution, I knew that at some point we would come out of this. So I was looking way down the road. So I said, okay, when we come out of this pandemic, we need to emerge in a position of strength. This is where my business comes in that Melanie was talking about. If you get so far down and your employees are disengaged, your students are disengaged in your work, your communities become disengaged, you're going to put your institution in a black hole, and it's going to be really hard to climb out. And so I kept thinking long term, but in the meantime, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I don't want to make sure that I don't hurt any of my employees. What if they get sick? And you know, the same things that Randy Woodson was going through, the same thing that every single chancellor, Kelly Brown, was going through, like, how do we keep our institutions running? But again, I was thinking, we're going to come out of this. And when we come out of this, we better be ready to go, because it's going to be really, really hard to get people re-engaged. It was hard to get them to come back into the office and help convince them that, you know, it's safe. We've done everything to protect you. Okay, that was March of 2020. By the summer of 2020, we started kind of bringing some folks back. We did not wait. It was slow. We were flexible. Some of them we let work remotely. And it was a whole family would get sick, and then you had to isolate. And sometimes it was you isolate 10 days, then your spouse got it another 10 days and another 10 days. And before you knew it, you were sitting at home for 3 months. That you all went through that. But what I will say is in 2021, the fall of 2021, we really hit our stride. We brought everybody back. The summer felt good. We did a lot of things outside. But what I would say is we are growing in enrollment. We are growing. We are thriving. Our businesses, I recognized our businesses needed us. Our community needed us. And I was constantly doing what I call an environmental scan, whether that's political, whether that is just within your communities, the business community, the economic development, constantly listening to what was happening in the community, because I needed to respond to that. Even though we had that pandemic going on, that's the beauty of community colleges. We are a reflection of the communities that we serve. And in particular, when I'm in the Henderson and Transylvania County, it's a very conservative area, very pro-business area. Well, I had to run my college like that, right? I had to think their expectation is that I am serving business and industry. Here we are. We're out of it now. We've been, I guess, 3 years. I guess it has been 3 years. We are doing really well. We are have our highest enrollment that we've ever had. We are getting people into the workforce, and we're able to answer a lot of the needs of the community. For example, we don't have enough teachers. So now community colleges are doing a lot of teacher prep training, getting teachers into the workforce quickly. Engineers, they're looking at us to get engineers into the workforce as quickly as possible. Our healthcare, I serve 3 hospitals, which is a really competitive environment. They don't have enough nurses, so they're counting on our institutions to get nurses. So the economic viability of my community depends on that workforce. And I think I always want to remind my team, remind everybody that I surround myself with, that if we're not doing that work, nobody else is. We are embedded in our communities. And I see Anna giving me a thumbs up that it is what we do. We do it really, really well. And that's kind of how I lead. It should be a constant environmental scan. So I just want to pause there because you all may have some questions, but that's a kind of a long story shortened. And I'm just going to pause and let you guys ask some questions, and I can kind of elaborate.
Hi, so I have a question. So when you say that you are a reflection of the community you serve, you're also talking about your staff and the people that you hire. How you make sure that you also hire this reflection, this diversity, and how you attract those people to work with you?
It's really difficult. And Anna, that's a really good, especially thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think about, I don't know where you are, but in Henderson County, if I look at, I use census data too to help inform what we do need to look like.
Mhm.
So we have a significant Latinx Hispanic community. And one of the things, some of the things that we're doing is when we're recruiting for employees, we try to translate our materials into Spanish so we can actually speak the language of some of our families, right? We also do that in our recruiting when we're recruiting. And then there are certain publications that are focused on whether it's African-American, whether it's the Latinx Hispanic community, whatever it is. Well, we try to demonstrate that we very much value these different cultures, because really that's what our campuses look like. Our campus is a mix of lots and lots of different cultures. But I think it's important to remember, coming from, and I can say this coming from rural Western North Carolina, we're talking about some of the people in our Appalachian rural areas are just as underserved as any of our other populations that may be in an inner city, right? So we have some very, very rural areas that did not have access to a lot of the things that we talk about. So I think it's very, very difficult, but what I do want to say is just remember how broad diversity is.
Mhm.
It is so incredibly broad. It's broad in diversity, even our institutions, a diversity of how we operate, diversity of how we recruit, diversity of how we look, diversity, everything. I think you have to think about how broad that is. And I try to remind everyone that that's really important. And that's diversity in decision making, like everybody on this screen too. The way you go about making decisions. So when you're building your team, when I built my team, and essentially the last position I hired was a chief of staff. I was looking for something that was different than everything that I'd already had, right? And I was willing to wait until I could fill the gap that I felt like I had. And I kept interviewing, and you just have to be persistent, but it's not easy. And if you've got a silver bullet, I'd love to have it.
No, I'm here in Alumni Association, NC State, and that's what I'm looking for. We serve such a diverse community, and I love our community here at NC State, but our staff is not that diverse. And I would like to really share that. How can we open with our team? Like, how can we open this opportunity to attract more diverse staff and to surround to get room in our staff for people that are so different right now to what we have, to get more people that are completely different to what we have right now. So it was interesting because that sentence that you said, we're a reflection of the community we serve, that was to me very powerful, and I really appreciate that.
I want to mention something to you too. This is, and I'm looking at the screen, and there's all women on this screen. When I first started my doctoral program, and I was the first group in Western Carolina's program, out of 58 community colleges, I want you to guess how many female presidents there were at the time.
Probably 0.
5.
Okay.
5 female presidents. It was white male dominated profession for a really long time. And it was I want to be kind here because you're recording me, but it was a fraternity that was hard to break into. And my dissertation was a gender study, because I said, how would somebody like me get there? Like, what does that path look like? Well, if you take that same scenario with diversity in terms of whether it's Hispanic, African American, whatever it may be, there's so many different cultures out there. How do they get there? Like, how do they what path do they take to get to that place that they want to get to? It's hard. It's hard to do, but I do know that all of our institutions are out there trying our best to attract as diverse a group as we possibly can. This adult learner work that NC State does, NC State's always done a lot of adult learner work, but in particular our community colleges, that is really capturing a lot of our minority students, which is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we pay for, here's something else. We're trying to do some, what I would call apprenticeship work, where if we have positions open at the college, we identify some of our students and then put them in an apprenticeship and they work for us. And then we can actually select. It takes some time to get them to where we need for them to be. But then if we can target and really be intentional about growing and developing those folks, that takes time if you've got time to wait it out. But that's something that we're doing right now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Good question.
Thanks.
Quiet group. I see Jessica's got her Blue Ridge sweatshirt on.
Dr. Bartlett put something in the chat. Can't.
Yes. Yes, there are only 14, and I think there are only 2 African-American presidents in the community college system, female African-American presidents. And there's only 2, I think there's 2 male, I'm thinking off the top of my head out of my 58 colleagues, I think there's only 2 male African-American. I do not think we have any Hispanic, Latinx presidents at all. So we own that, have a lot of work to do. And it was even hard for me to break through. As a female in Western North Carolina from a rural area, to be a college president was kind of unheard of. The Silk Socks Club. That's good. And it's still hard. It's not just that. I will tell you, in the community college system, there's also the President's Association. So 58 of us, we also belong to an association. And when I joined that association, even the leadership of the association was a fraternity. It was all men. It was the president of the association, the vice president of the association, the secretary, the treasurer, all of that. It was all men for as long as I can remember. And just now I've become the vice president of the association. One thing that I am doing, and I think you all will like to hear this, and especially maybe Dr. Bartlett, but I'm starting a women's mentoring program for aspiring community college presidents to see if I can't help get more women prepared to take on that role and compete for the role. You got to compete for it. You got to earn it. You don't just get it. You got to earn it. Good question. So Erica asked me, what along your life journey equipped you best for your role as community college president? I will say that when I was at Haywood, having a diverse experiences in roles. I started out as in advancement. I was fundraising for 7 years. I was their first full-time executive director of their foundation. And I stayed in that role for 7 years. And when the presidency turned over, the president at that time was looking for a director of continuing ed. And I thought, gosh, you know, I could use my relationships that I built fundraising over in continuing ed to work with business and industry and tie them to training. So I went to him, I can't remember which one it was. And I said, I'd like for you to give me a chance to do that. And here's why I think that I can do it. I could take my relationships that I built fundraising into our workforce side of the house and connect with these organizations and provide training for them. And they gave me that chance. So I shifted over into continuing ed on the workforce development side. And then from there, we started integrating curriculum and continuing education. So then I was curriculum liaison. So I also taught at West. I made sure I was teaching, because in order to really fill out your resume and to have some credibility with the faculty, you need to have been in the classroom. You need to have understood what it feels like to be a faculty member. So I taught at Western Carolina for 8 years at the same time. So now you've seen me go through, I went in advancement, I was in continuing education, I was teaching in the classroom. And then I went into, we were without a student services VP, and I said, you know what? I'll do that. Why don't you let me do that? So then I went over into student services. So I was student services, VP of student services and workforce development. So I continued to round out my experience. And I think, Erica, if I could say anything, I would say get a well-rounded experience in whichever institution you are, and sign up for things, lead things, and don't think that somebody is waiting. So you're going to wait for someone to ask you. If you're interested, you go after it. Don't you sit back. You say, you know what? I would really love to give that a try. I hope that you will give me that opportunity. And I think that if you will do that, then you can make it work for you. But you have to get a really varied background. And that helped me, I would say, the most, because there's really not much I didn't know about by the time I had been in almost every single position. I wasn't a CFO though. I stayed away from that. It's a complicated system. Good question, Erica.
Probably answered my question with that last bit there, but I was going to ask you, what would be your advice for someone, kind of piggybacking on what Anna and I think Erica was speaking on? What would be your advice to someone interested in working in the community college setting or being that leader in the community college setting? But I think that last bit that you were just saying about getting that experience in different roles may be an answer to that. But did you have any other thoughts on that? Like, what would be your advice for someone interested in working in the community college and probably being that leader?
I would say build your network. Build your network right now. And you all are in a position, NC State gives you lots of opportunities to network across the state. Keep building it, stay connected, ask questions, get advice, and also don't just say, here's what I need from you. Be willing to help someone else, right? What can I do for you? How can I help you grow and learn? Because there's always somebody that is behind you, maybe professionally, and somebody gave you an opportunity to get to where you are, everybody on the screen, but you've got an obligation to help those along with you. You never know who knows who, right? And the community college world in North Carolina is very small. It seems large, but trust me, it's a network. And before you know it, you know people from Manio to Murphy. And I think that's important. Build that network. While you're building your resume, build your network. And remember too, I talked to you that I went from position to position. You also need to have what I call your body of work. You need to have accomplished something, not just move from position to position. So when you build your body of work, then that will help give you leverage, right? A leverage to make your next move, but you have to have accomplished something. You can't just move around. You got to do something. And then that helps you be able to sell yourself to take that next step.
I will have another question. So you also mentioned that you're creating jobs that you're creating training students that already will have a job in the industry, and the industry is waiting for those students to come and work for them. Do you think that community college is going to grow based on this? I think that there are many job and role positions that we don't know will exist in a soon future, and that community college need to also plan on training and development programs for these jobs that right now don't exist. But I think that everything is moving so fast. So I don't know how you see the growth of community college in our area versus four-year university, like bigger universities.
If ever there was a time for community colleges to shine, it is absolutely right now. The economy in the state of North Carolina, and this is in every state, I think that if you're paying attention, if you're reading, if you're doing a lot of professional reading about community colleges and even just higher ed in general, you will see that community colleges right now are really doing great work. So let's look at it like this. Let's think about healthcare. And this is an example that I use with my colleagues, or I use when I'm doing a presentation. Any of you have ever been to the doctor, maybe you've had a surgery, right? There's probably 10 people that you're going to interact with before you ever get to see the doctor. So you're checking in somebody's making an appointment, somebody's checking to make sure you've got insurance. Then you go back and somebody takes your vitals. You may have to have blood drawn by a phlebotomist. You may need an MRI tech or an X-ray, right? And then you may see a nurse. You may see a nurse before, or you may even see a PA before you ever get to the doctor. Who in the world do you think trains that entire pathway? So that entire workforce before you even see a physician if you didn't have that, would dismantle your entire healthcare system. So I think that I use that as an example of how important the work of our community colleges. And even if you look at the housing crisis, are we the only solution? Absolutely not, but we are part of the solution. If we're going to get enough inventory where the cost of housing in the state of North Carolina can come down, then you're going to have people that can build. You need electricians, you need engineers, you need plumbers, you need HVAC people. And so we're part of the workforce solution for the housing problem. We're part of the solution for the healthcare situation that we're in. But we're only part of that. That's but anyway, I say all that to say is even all this infrastructure work, that water and sewer and broadband, and think about this. Think about electric vehicles, all this electric vehicle stuff. Who do you think is going to work on those? Who do you think is going to stand up the electrical vehicle charging stations across the state of North Carolina? It's going to be people that are trained by community colleges. So if you can look at how incredibly important we are, and that is not in competition with our universities. Universities don't do any of that, right? They probably like to do some of that, but they don't do any of that technical stuff that we do. And I think that now we're starting to see our colleges, a lot of the colleges that were actually losing enrollment during the pandemic, we all kind of struggled during the pandemic. That's just reality. We're starting to see a real turnaround. And I do think that the North Carolina legislature right now, they've been tough on universities and they've been tough on K-12, but they're pretty kind to the community colleges. Now, do they put money in our budget? Kind is one thing, but putting ink on the paper is another.
Right.
But if you think about where we're positioned, we are positioned in a really good place in this economy in this time. And I hope you all see that too. But I think those are some really good examples of how important our work is. And this diversity, equity, inclusion thing, community colleges are open enrollment. I think if you don't know that, I want to make sure you do know that. That means that we don't turn away a single person, no matter where they are in their educational journey, no matter who they are. If they don't speak our language, we figure it out. We find somebody that translates for us. That's going to help us solve some of the diversity, equity, inclusion problems that we have too.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Bartlett had a question in the chat.
Absolutely. So mentoring, I don't really like to say up and down, but it's up.
That wasn't
up
me,
and-
just so we know. That wasn't my question.
Oh.
Just so we're answering to the person who.
I'm sorry. I
No,
looked at.
yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry.
my
No,
name
I'm
twin.
sorry. I can't. I just saw Michelle and I didn't even see the last name and the B. I apologize, Michelle Beasley.
Oh, that's okay. It doesn't matter who said it, who, anyway. Mentoring, that's a really good question, Michelle. Mentoring, I'm even actually mentoring another president that's actually been in the business a lot longer than I have, right? That has been a president. So not only is it important, it's also, I would say, almost 360. So you're mentoring people that may be in the same place that you are, helping each other, right? It's kind of a reciprocal thing. But also there's always something to be learned and shared, regardless of where you are in your journey. Even though I'm doing a lot of mentoring with individuals that would like to get to where I am professionally. There's a lot of people that are mentoring me as well, but it's a shared relationship where I can share something that might be valuable to them, but they're actually mentoring me. And I try to keep a broad network. But here's something really important. Don't widen your network. That we talked about the community college network and the university network being broad. It's really important to me to also have a network in private industry, to understand what's out there in private industry and have a good, I need mentors outside of the community college. That makes me better at the community college and better running the business of the college with a mentor on the outside. So yes, I'm being mentored all the time, day in and day out, by my colleagues. And I couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you. I agree. I am actually a big fan of mentorship, and I think the label itself sort of is intimidating in the fact that all of us have colleagues, coworkers, people who we bounce ideas off of, which is basically what mentorship is. You exchange ideas and guide each other along the way, give advice, that kind of thing. So I was just curious. A lot of people I've found feel like having mentorship for themselves is somehow admitting that they are not as well equipped for their position as they should be or should be presenting. And I like to see that you encourage people to do the 360, and I like that approach. Thank you.
One lesson I would share with you all is I mess up every day. Every day, at the end of the day, I go home and go, I wish I hadn't have said that, or I wish I would have done this a different way, even though the intent was good. That's just life. We are human beings, and we need, I would hope that somebody would extend me grace. But what I do, if I answer to my board chair and to my board, and if I really mess up royally, I try not to do that. But I will say, you know what, I own that. I messed that up, and here's how I'm gonna fix that. And I'm not gonna do that again, right? I've learned a lesson from that. Own it, fix it, and don't ever do it again. And you will grow from that. And that's something that's gonna carry you no matter what you're doing. Just show some humility. It's a quiet group.
Well, I think that also when you say show humility, also is like make yourself approachable, because for some of the leaders, I just don't feel I can go directly and knock on their door and ask a question. But for others, it's like they opened their door and they said anything, just we're a team, let's work together. So just that creates a tremendous difference in the environment. So
that's really, my door is always wide open, and I encourage people to come in and out But the reality of it is I am the president, and
Mhm.
that title in itself can be intimidating to people. Like,
Right.
oh, I can't go into the president's office. So no matter how much you open your door and you encourage people to do that, some of them just aren't going to do that, and that's okay. But my leadership style is I can't sit back and expect them to come to my office. I go to theirs. And I always set aside time in my day, and this is probably a good strategy for all of you, regardless of where you work. I set aside time every week to walk around campus and visit people in their offices. And I know something personal about each one of them. Like one of the ladies that works over in the TED building, she's a birder. So I asked her, did you go birding this weekend? And so if you know something personal about these people, then it lets their guard down, and they can talk to you about something that's important to them. And they know that you care about their personal well-being and their personal life. That's really important no matter what role you're in. So get out of your office and walk around and talk to other people. And then you're building your network at the same time. And then when you really need to make something happen on your campus, there's a better chance that people are going to rally with you and rally behind you on what you want to accomplish. But if you keep that separation and you keep people at a distance or an arm's length, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So you need those personal interactions.
I have a question. What would you say would be your biggest accomplishment as a community leader in Hendersonville, that area? What would you say would be your biggest accomplishment as a community leader?
I don't, that's a tough question.
Or
I don't think
most impact to help your community?
I would say, well, let me just tell, I would tell you something that I would never dream that I would be doing. When the pandemic first hit, we have a fairly large campus, and I have a conference hall that I can fit 1,000 people in it. So it's a pretty large conference hall, and it's really the only place in Henderson County, certainly in Transylvania County, Henderson County, where you can get that many people. So we typically host a lot of nonprofits, fundraising events, and we're the gathering place, sometimes community hearings. Well, when all of these people were dying during the pandemic, we were the first place in Western North Carolina to stand up a drive-through testing site. Now, remember, I'm in education. I am not in healthcare. But we partnered with UNC Health, and we stood up the first testing site. And then after that, we stood up the first mass vaccination clinic in Western North Carolina. And we vaccinated my nursing students, my nursing staff, all of my team. We vaccinated 27,000 people in our community. And to think that we could pull off something like that in a we're medium-sized community college was awesome. And we were the model for Appalachian, for Western Carolina. They came over and looked at what we did, UNCA, that we kind of set the standard for providing healthcare. And I'm in education, never thought, but I had assets that the community needed. I had people, I had place, I had a willingness to say, yes, we will help this community. And it was, I even look back, and it's pretty amazing. And we got this huge plaque, and we got really a lot of recognition for that. But there were people on the campus that never would have darkened the door of our college. That a lot of our senior citizens would have never come through there. And it was pretty awesome as I look back. That's quite an accomplishment. Now, typically, I would have said the workforce that we're providing, but you know what? We saved some lives. We really saved a lot of lives by doing that. And Jessica, you may have been around when we were doing that. It's pretty awesome. That was pretty impactful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Something I'd never dreamed I would be doing is giving vaccines.
Well,
Margaret has a question.
Hi, Dr. Leatherwood. I am curious, that's a really fantastic response to what your community needed. I see things that my community needs all the time, but it's not a pandemic where resources seem to be very abundant. So I'm curious if you could tell us anything about how to put together, and it's not necessarily even funding, but just the resources. It sounded like you had a lot to draw on for that project. I have lots of things that I would love to do that I know that, growing, and I'll tell you, I manage an IT group in the College of Engineering here at NC State. And there's loads of things I think that we could do for the whole college, for the departments, for the administration. But I just can't seem to convince anybody to give me the resources to do it, even though the work that we are doing and have done, everybody is very pleased with. Any advice?
Well, I'm thinking about how I would perhaps trying to do it from the inside is really, really difficult. And if I were in that situation, having somebody from the outside, a partner, would be important. The very organizations that you serve, this is kind of how I look at it. The organizations that you serve, if this is going to benefit them, if you could bring somebody externally to the table potentially, and maybe, so that would be one strategy that I might potentially use. The other strategy is, can you tie it to the strategic plan, right? Can you tie it to some type of return on investment? Does it help within efficiency at the institution? Does it solve a problem that they have made readily apparent at the institution? So you got to figure out how to sell it to them, not just because it feels good, but because maybe you're going to save them money, save them staffing, generate more students. I don't know what your project is, but how you articulate it is almost as important as the project itself. So you've really got to figure out how you're going to message it to the leadership to get them to buy into it. Or perhaps you have some leverage with other departments. Is it an interdisciplinary thing that you could do, or interdepartmental, where several departments could benefit from what it is you want to do? Maybe that's a strategy.
I actually have, I'm not talking about it, one project in particular. My group, and I've been here at State for quite a long time. My group at various times has written software that is used by a very narrow portion of the college, and other times we've written software that's used, I think GradWatch is used almost university wide. It's like everybody's willing to give me money in retrospect. And I'll tell you, this is really tough. I'll tell you that what you've said that I need to do is the thing that I have the hardest time with, because I'm good at what I do, because I'm an introvert, and because I don't let things distract me, because I get a problem in my teeth and I don't let it go, and I don't let a lot of other things distract me from what it is that I know needs to get done. But that focus also works against me, because when I go to present something, I feel like I have to work myself up. And I'm so intense about it that I wonder if I'm just, I don't know, beginning to wonder if it's personality as opposed to good old, I don't know, logic that, hey, I can save you, I don't know, if I can save you 20 minutes on every transaction you have to make on release time for the entire college. Yeah, that's I think that's, it's already a proven technology. I just now need to improve it. I don't know.
Margaret, don't get down on yourself. What you have is a gift. You just have to figure out how to articulate that to them. And that's kind of the hardest thing, that one of the hardest things as a leader that we have to do. It's as much about messaging as it is about the work itself, but perhaps you turn it around and you say, be flexible, and you can say something to the effect of, if this won't work, tell me how I can help. How can I help you? And maybe you turn it around and let them tell you a problem that they want you to solve, right? And maybe, is there any way to weave that into it? You got to be flexible, because if they're not listening to you right now, perhaps there's, I don't know, maybe there's a way to be flexible, and maybe you can negotiate this by helping them do something else, right? I don't know. It's internal politics, and universities are even more difficult than community. Universities are very, very difficult to change and move. Extremely
Lord,
difficult.
don't know
And
it.
sometimes community colleges aren't quite, they're not that as hard as universities are. Hey, listen, anytime you want to come to my college and solve a problem, hey.
I was just going to say, do you have any openings? Because, I like it. You've got some pretty countryside up there. And maybe that's what I should do. Retire from the university and go work for the community college system. That works.
Well, it's the same retirement system. I'm not sure I'd do that if I were you, but
yeah, I know. Oh, well.
Well, you
I have some things
do.
to finish for. I have some things to finish for certain young Miss Waters before I go off any place, like my degree.
So Margaret just brings up an interesting something that I want to mention to you all. We've talked about promoting and moving up the ladder, but just remember that, and we're really talking about an entrance strategy. And Margaret brings up a really good point. As you're moving from position to position, your exit strategy is just as important as your on-ramp, right? So you want to be strategic as you possibly can. You always want to leave where you are better than what you found it, right? So you've positioned the institution for the next person that comes into that position to even take it a little bit further. That's part of your body of work, right? They may not recognize it now, but they will. So you make sure you have a really good exit strategy, even if you're moving into different positions. And Margaret, you need make sure you have a good exit strategy.
I'm pretty sure 33 years of service is as good as it's going to get. So.
I love Miss Margaret. We have 5 minutes left until 7. Does anyone have any final questions? We thank you so much for the information you have shared already, but does anyone have any final questions that they would like to ask Dr. Leatherwood?
Well, I would just like to say thank you so much. I really, really enjoy meeting you. And I know that you're a president, but you look like very approachable and focused on your community leader. And I truly appreciate this time that you share and all the knowledge and advice. Thank you so much. It was really good.
Well, you are welcome. And I would ask Lashika or and you guys can share my email and you can shoot me an email directly. I answer all my emails. It may take me just a little bit to get to you, but if you ever have a question, I am happy to help you, to call you, to answer it, or give you some guidance. I mean, actually, I've done that with someone on the screen, so I'm happy to help. If I can help you navigate something, I certainly will try.
Thank you. I'm applying to a doctorate in community leadership program, and I'm actually one of the finalists. So I'm very excited to do that. And this was very interesting for me because I see so much hope in community colleges, especially for minorities, where my heart is. So this was really good. Thank you.
And we need you, Anna. We need you
Oh.
coming into our
Thank you.
community colleges.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dr. Leatherwood, any final words that you'd like to share with the group, community college leadership?
I would just say, I just would say I'm proud of all of you all. You're taking steps to make a difference, to improve your own personal position, to improve our institutions, and to improve our state. Just remember that our colleges and our universities are just a small piece of something much bigger than we are, and that is improving the lives of the citizens in the state of North Carolina. And none of us do this for the money. We do this because it's meaningful and we can make a difference. And so I would just applaud all of you all, and anything that I can do, I hope that you will reach out to me personally. I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Have
much
a
for
great
coming.
evening. Yes. Thank you so much. You all have a good night.
You too.
Bye.